Hi guys, my name's Kieran. I'm the Group HR Manager at CCS. Thanks for taking the time to have a look through this video. As you're aware, we've made a number of changes and improvements in the way we're working. Everything from policies to methodologies. And we organised a set of training, face-to-face training, across Ireland and the UK for all of our supervisors like yourselves. I understand that everybody wasn't able to attend face-to-face. So what we've put together today is a summary of the training that I'm going to take you through. It's pretty much the same slides we would have gone through with your colleagues, but obviously I'm not going to spend as much time going through it, and I will need you to look at some videos separately. We'll send those to you, and I'll also need you to sit down with your area manager and go through some of the stuff. But I'll tell you that as we go through it. So we might as well start off. This is our agenda. So as you can see, there's a number of different things we want to cover. Our little friend Harry, we're going to go through his life cycle, and we're going to talk about his life in CCS and what happens to him, right from his interview, right over there, through to his induction, what his first day was like. Then I'm going to talk to you a bit about the values. We've introduced new company values. I want to talk to you a bit about the way we work. That's all about our handbook and some new policies that we have. I'm going to talk to you about probation, really, really good tool for you when you're managing staff, when you have new staff coming on board. And I want to talk about absence process. I know absence is a big issue for so many of us on your site, and how you manage your sites and how you manage your people. So we have a new absence process that will hopefully make things a little bit easier for you. Performance. Again, on some of your sites, you may have people that are underperforming or aren't performing to the best of their potential. And I wanted to talk to you a bit about methodology, some tips and tricks on how to get the very best out of our people and make it a really positive work environment. Some changes to the audit tool, and then finally we'll go through the termination. So I hope that's okay. As you can see, it is a pretty packed agenda, and it may take you a little bit of time to go through the whole video, but you can certainly split it and watch it at different times. So the first thing I really wanted to talk to you about was the interview itself. First impressions are so important. As you can imagine, when you see somebody, you make an impression, you get an idea of who they are and what they are. If you think about how long does it take you to make a first impression of somebody, it's actually around about 30 seconds. And if you saw somebody like this, you might think certain things. If you walked into an office and saw somebody like this, you might think something different. And then finally, if you saw somebody who wasn't maybe as well dressed, you might think something different as well. So it's all about our first impression and how we create our first impression when we have a new person who might be coming to work for us in CCS. And if we don't present ourselves as being really professional and the excellent company to work for that we are, then that person may not take the job as seriously. And they may feel, well, maybe it doesn't matter if I don't turn up to work. Maybe it doesn't matter if I don't clean to the really highest of standards. So what I would really urge you to do is think about the first impression. Make sure that it's right for the individual. It'll also help you with your decision making when you're doing an interview. So I suppose, and when we did the face-to-face workshops, we asked people, we split everybody into groups, and we said, so what was your first day like? What was it like? What did you think about? How did you feel? But it was all about saying, you know, what was it like? And trying to put yourself in the shoes of that new person who's joining your team. So the interview itself. Some of you may have carried out interviews before. Some of you may not have. It's a really, really good skill to have and to learn. And what I would say is, if you haven't done them before, I would sit down with your area manager. They will make time and go through it with you. And they will talk you through a really, really simple interview form. The advantage of that is, it means you get to choose the people who are going to be on your team. You get to pick the very best people who are going to work with you and your colleagues. And it's really, really interesting. So We're not going to do practice today, but I would ask you to sit down with your area manager and go through it. There are a number of questions, and there's a form that you will have which has been sent out to your site. And really, when you look at it, it's very, very straightforward. It takes you through 5 questions that you have to ask people. And the first one is really just around assessing the person's standard of English. We don't need people to be fluent in English, absolutely not, but we do need them to be able to understand instruction. And we do need them to be able to converse with you and with their colleagues. So that's the first part of it. It's not a question per se, but it is in your general conversation with the person. Assess their standard of English and give it a score, 1 to 5. 5 being amazing, 1 being not so good. The next one down, we want to understand the person's commitment to the organisation. And if you ask somebody a direct question and you say, are you going to be a great cleaner? Are you going to be really, really committed to CCS? Yes, of course I will. I'm going to be amazing. I'm going to be your best cleaner. It's very easy for somebody to tell you what you want to hear. So the way these questions are designed, they're designed for you to find out a little bit more about it. It's ask the candidate about their career history, what they have worked at or studied before, and understand how long they have stayed in a role. So if you meet a candidate and they've stayed 2 months in one job, 6 months maybe in another job, they may have travelled for 2 months, didn't like it, came back, started something different. If that's what they've done before, that's probably what they're going to do for you. So past history is the best, I suppose, predictor of the way they are going to be when they start working for you. So again, if you see somebody who's completely jumped around, well then maybe not. Maybe they'll get a slightly lower score. Maybe they'll get a 1 or a 2. If you see somebody who has maybe completed their studies for their in school or college, and they've been committed to something for 4 or 5 years, that's fair enough. Maybe that's good. Maybe somebody has stayed in a job for 12 months, 18 months. Again, that's fair enough. Or maybe they've been committed to a sport or something that they do outside of work. So just try and delve a little bit to what have they done, what's their history before. The next one is talking about understanding, will they be a good fit to your team? And you can ask them about, what would your past supervisor say about you? Can you tell me 2 good things and 2 bad things or 2 things they would have asked you to improve? Again, really interesting question. You're not asking it directly, you know. And you'll see question 4 is about what you know about the role, what does it interest you, so do they want to do it? And then question 5, have you ever worked in cleaning before, or in a role that had attention to detail or health and safety? All right. So there are the 5 questions. I would urge you to sit down with your manager and go through them and maybe do a little bit of practice. But that's the interview itself. The next thing we want to talk about is forms. You may already have these on site. We have new forms. We've simplified so many of the documents that we're using. And all I really want to say about this part is, can you really, really just take the time, if you have a new starter on site, to go through the form and really fill it out with all the detail. What we find is when we get them through to HR and through to payroll, very often details are missing, and that means the person can't get paid. The most important thing that you need to do is obviously check that you have the visa correctly, that somebody has the right identification. They cannot be on site if they have not given you the correct identification, and that they have a visa to work in the country, whether that's Ireland or the UK. And that is absolutely critical. The next part is when you go through the form, it will ask you all of the details you need to have, but you have to have things like their name, their address, their bank details, all filled out perfectly. Because if we don't have all of those details on the form, or everything that's asked for on the form, we cannot set them up in HR and we cannot pay them. And you know yourself, we're talking about first impressions, and it would be so bad for somebody on their first day or their first week after they've worked early morning shifts for us in most cases, and then we don't pay them. So we absolutely don't want that to happen. So again, I would just really urge you to spend as much time on that as you can and just make sure it's really clear. If you have any questions on it, please talk to your line manager or give us a call in HR. The next thing I wanted to talk about was induction. And again, we talked earlier about our first day And what did it mean for us? And how did we feel? And when we did the face-to-face workshops with people, we were talking about how nervous we felt. We talked about how uncertain we felt. We talked about not knowing where the cleaning room is, where the bathrooms are, where are the floors, how do I clean, what's the right equipment to use. And we talked about how nervous and insecure people can feel on their first day. So it's up to us, and particularly, in your role as supervisor, it is so, so important that you make that person's first day really, really good. If we think about it, there's a few things that are so, so critical. And I know we're tight on time on our first day. But again, if we don't get this right on the first day, we won't get the best out of the person. And we can't expect them to be the best version of who they are. So what I would say, so important that they meet and greet. So they meet everybody on the team. You show them around the store or the office areas that they're cleaning. You then make sure that you use the induction video. That's a separate link that I will that you'll get. I won't show you it today, but it is critical that the person sees the induction video on their first day or on their second day. Take the time. It only takes about 6 or 7 minutes, but it is so, so important that they sit down with the tablet and have a look through it. Make sure you've seen it yourself so as you know what's in it. And again, it gives them that sense of the kind of company they're working for. They're working for a multinational organization of nearly 2,500 people across Europe. It's an exciting organization, and they're an important part of what we do. If they don't come into work and do a really excellent job for us, cleaning wherever they're cleaning, then our reputation doesn't stand up. And that's what we thrive on, and you know that. You are there enforcing standards every day. So again, when you've shown them the induction video, you'll talk about the SOPs, you'll talk about health and safety. So again, just important to get that right on the first day. So key points, make sure to show them the induction video, make sure to show them around. The next part that I would love to talk to you about is values. We all have different views of what values might be. We very often talk about our family values or my personal values. And we did a very big piece of work a few months ago in CCS to see what are the values of CCS? What does it mean to work for CCS? What do we stand for? And we spoke to about 50 or 60 people who work for us, everywhere from some of our cleaning teams across Ireland, our cleaning teams in the UK, our managers, and some of our teams in Europe, and also our head office people. And we said, look, what does it mean? What are the values of CCS? And what's important to you when you work in a company? What we came up with was SMART, and you'll see them here. There's a value pack that either has reached your site already or will be reaching your site over the next while. And as supervisors, I'm really asking for your support on this one. This is something that I need you to really own and drive in conjunction with your area manager. Because the values are something that will make it much easier for us to manage on a daily basis. As you can see, they're really, really straightforward. The first one is obviously safety, and it's always about how we work. The next one is make it simple. So it's about simple systems, get the job done. It's not about making something more complex. The next one is advancement, and that's all about our amazing technology and our systems and the way we operate. The next one is respect. And again, respect is huge to us in CCS. We don't tolerate somebody being spoken to inappropriately. We don't tolerate somebody being shouted at. We don't tolerate somebody having to do something that they haven't been trained with or don't have the right equipment to do. And then the final one is team. And again, you know that as supervisors, it's so important that we all work together as a team. You have a short period of time to get your office environment or your store clean to the standard, and you need everybody to be pulling in the right direction. And that's what team stands for. There is another video, and it's a values video. And again, I would really ask you to take the time to look at that. I will be asking you to take your staff through that when you get your values pack. So your values pack, as I said, may already have landed with you. It will have a poster, it'll have some booklets in it, and it'll have a few other little things. And it's important to take the time to take your team through the video. It's only a few minutes long, and it just talks a bit about the values. What I wanted to do now was take you through the values in a little bit of detail, just so as you know what they're about, so as you can explain them to your teams. And it's really important, as you know, that you need to be able to live it. You need to be the person who is really living safety, if that's what the value is, or advancement. You'll have a really nice little booklet on your site which talks about each one of these. But for example, with safety, we always talk about health and safety as the core of what we do. If you don't have the excellent health and safety standards that you already have on your site, it then is so easy for something to go wrong, and we absolutely don't want that to happen. So there's a set of behaviours, as you see here, that we talk about in terms of what does it mean, what does the safety value mean. So it's things like we actively engage in safety training and feel safe to ask questions. Or safety first, no risk, no compromise. Or if we see an unsafe practice, we intervene and notify our supervisor immediately. You can read the rest of them yourself, but again, just to give you an idea of the kind of behaviours that I suppose you need to be exhibiting, and it's what you can encourage within your team. And really call out to people and say, guys, when we talk about safety, this is what we mean. This is what we want you to do. The next one is make it simple. And this is an important one. When we were doing all the workshops, it was with people. People very often talked about things in CCS are made simple. We don't overcomplicate things. Whether that's the cleaning process, whether that's the chemicals, whether that's the equipment, or whether it's the way you supervise our teams or the way we work with our teams. We talk about down the bottom, we never engage in or develop drama. A lot of people commented on the fact that they really love that about CCS. There isn't drama over nothing. People don't make a big deal out of stuff. We just get the job done. We make sure we do it in the most simple way and the most straightforward way. Another behaviour there is we have a positive attitude towards everyone we meet. And you know the benefit of that. If you come into work in the morning with your positive attitude and your smile and greeting your team and making the very best of the day, then that sets the tone for your team. That sets the way your morning shift is going to go. And it's about encouraging your team to do the same thing. We are organised and efficient up the top. We always look for the most simple solution. If we move on to the next one, advancement. And again, as I said earlier, it's about our systems, it's about our processes, it's about being the very best. We talk about the idea of aces in places, which really means we try and get the very best people to do the jobs. Whether that's you as our supervisor, whether that's our area managers, whether that's our cleaning teams. So we always try and get the best people to do the jobs. We always want people to be, in the middle there you see, always be the best version of you. So speak positively to your teams. Talk about how well they're doing. And really encourage them to be the best version of them. When people are with us, generally for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours on a day, they have that opportunity to be in a safe environment. Whatever else is going on in their lives, so many of our teams have very, very busy lives outside of work, working with us. They may have other jobs, they may have families, they may have study. And it's important that they feel that they can come in here and be the very best version of them. That they can leave all that aside and really make a difference while they're in doing our cleaning, which is fantastic. The next one, and again, it's so important, it's respect. We treat each other and our work with respect. It's who we are. And that really is the cornerstone of CCS. Right through from when it was started in 1966, it's been built on respect. Respect is the way we do business, and it's the way we win business. We don't tolerate being spoken to somebody being spoken to disrespectfully. And I suppose it's for you as the supervisor to really encourage that on your teams and encourage people to always be respectful. One that we actually had some debate on was one day we are aware of and respect one another's cultural values. So again, we're probably one of the most diverse organizations in Europe. We have so many different nationalities, we have so many different languages, and that's something that we truly, truly value. And I suppose when we talk about respect, it's, I suppose for you as the supervisor, understanding that and understanding what's going on in your teams. And trying to make sure that everybody feels respected and that their own cultural values are understood in as much as it can be within the teams. And at the very least, people can come in and feel that they can do their job, be spoken to politely, and get a wage for what they do. The final one is teamwork. And we spoke about this before. It's we are one team, together everyone achieves more. It's what we believe. And you know that as a supervisor, that's absolutely true. If you have one member of your team pulling in a different direction, you know how hard that is. You know how difficult it is to try and get the team back on track. So with all of the values, whether it's team, whether it's respect, whether it's advancement, whether it's safety, it's really down to you as the supervisor to really try and live them and bring them forward in the team. And don't underestimate the power you have to make the difference on that morning or on that evening clean. And it is really, really down to you and your skill. So I would say take the time, read through the values, but definitely as well take the time with your team, show them the video, talk about the values pack, and just take the time to give it what it needs. If you have any questions on the values, certainly talk to your area manager or ring any of us in HR, and we'll be more than happy to chat you through or any advice we can give you on them. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is the way we work. And this is really our company handbook. We've launched a new company handbook. And the handbook is really, really useful for you on site as a supervisor because it talks about the procedures from an employment point of view, what somebody's entitlements are. It talks a little bit about what are the ethics of the company and how we operate. And it also talks about what happens if there's an absence, what happens with social media. So you probably have already got a letter to site and been asked to introduce it to each one of your teams. And the letter will really ask them to sign to say that they've received the handbook, but also that they're going to read it over the next while. And that's really, really important. Because if we end up that there's a difficulty down the line with somebody, it's important that they know what the policy and procedure was in the first place. Some of the key changes with the new handbook are, first of all, that the Ireland and the UK are now in the one handbook. We've amalgamated everything. Policies and procedures are also in the one handbook. So we used to have 2 or 3 different versions of the handbook. They're now all one, so there's only one handbook. So what I'd say to you is, if you have any old ones on site, get rid of them. Just use the new one that we have. There's some new policies. There's a new corporate social responsibility policy. We've made some changes to our social media policy. And then the new absence policy and procedure. As I said, there is a new policy video, which I will ask you to have a look at. And again, when you have a new starter, it's important that they go through it and they have a look at this policy video, because it does give them a really good insight into what they need to do and what they need to be aware of. And it is one of the things that will be on their training that they need to cover. There was 2 policies that I really wanted to take a little bit of time to talk you through. One was the corporate social responsibility policy. This is one that I'm actually quite excited about because it's something new we've introduced, but it really shows the kind of company we are. And I'm not going to go through all of the detail with you, but I would say have a read of it yourself. There's certain commitments that we have made in the policy, and we've broken them down into 4 pillars. One is workplace, next one is marketplace, community, and environment. Under each one of those, So let's say, for instance, around workplace, we talk about we are all equal. We talk about that we will pay staff correctly. We talk about communicating with staff regularly. Staff never been asked to carry out a task that does not meet the highest standards of health and safety. And there's more there which you can read for yourself, and you'll see it clearly in the policy handbook. The next one is around marketplace. This talks about how we do business. And very often when you're deciding where you wanted to work, or where some of your teams are deciding where they want to work, they'll always be interested in what kind of company am I working for? What are the ethics of this company? What does it stand for? And when you read through the marketplace ones, it's really, really good. It talks about how we do business ethically. We want fair trade in the environments that we work in. Competition is reasonable and it's based on quality. So we do believe that there's work in the market for everybody, and we want people to succeed. And it's wonderful to see the commitment like this made in the policy. Our next one is community. It talks about how we enhance our local communities, whether that's by the work as a supervisor you do in offering flexible work to people in the area. But we also talk about how we share our knowledge and how we try and support communities where we can. Final is environment, and again you can look at the environment one, and it talks about how we strive to improve our products, reduce waste in terms of transporting chemicals and transporting equipment. So take the time to have a read of it. It's really, really interesting. The next one that I wanted to talk to you about was some of the changes to the communications and social media policy, or media policy. Some key things we've done in that. What we would ask is, that I suppose the cornerstone of it is, if you're using your social media or if you're communicating with people outside of CCS, please don't talk about CCS. It's so important that we're careful about the messages that go out there. Certainly if there's any difficulties, definitely never speak about it to staff members in the store that you're operating in. Make sure you do speak about it to your own management team and sort it out that way. But it's important that we keep CCS business within CCS business. If you know any confidential information, make sure you keep it confidential. We talk about, if you have your tablet or phone, if people have a phone, that personal use is kept to a minimum. And good judgment in sharing only public information, including any kind of data that you have. So again, have a read of the policy. It's an interesting piece of reading. So the next piece that I want to talk to you about is probation. Probation, as you know, is generally about 6 months, and it is an excellent tool, either to congratulate the person who's new on your team and how well they're doing, point out all the things that they've done so well, encourage them, and see how they're getting on, see where they want to go, see what they need to do. The other part about it is, if somebody isn't the right fit for your team, it's about being able to call that early and saying, right, look, I really don't think this is working. Maybe the work isn't right for you, maybe your attitude isn't right. It's about being able to call that out for the person, and that we part company earlier rather than later. But again, doing that with a proper procedure. So within probation, as you can see, there's a few different parts to it there. It's always either the best fit for CCS. All I would say is, remember, you get the very, very best out of the person in the first 6 months. It won't get better. If you're not seeing the right standards, if you're not seeing the right attitude in the first 6 months, you're certainly not going to see it after that. If it's something to do with cleaning standards, well, then that's different. Somebody can be trained. If they have the right attitude and are coming into work every day, well, then that's much, much easier to do. So if you are having any difficulties or doubts with anyone on your team, please make sure to talk to your area manager or give us a call in HR. One of the things that your area manager will sit down and work with you through or ask you to do is a probation review. And again, if you haven't done one before, certainly sit with your area manager and ask them to go through it with you. Because again, it's a really good tool, and you should sit down with your people when they're coming up to their probation As I said, if there's a problem with somebody, don't wait for 6 months. Talk to us early. Talk to us round about, well, as soon as you spot the problem, because once it goes past the 6 months, it then gets much more difficult to try and resolve it. The probation review form, again, there's a number of questions that I would like you to do with your staff who are coming up to 4 months. Around about 4 to 6 months, we should be flagging it. You need to have it at about 6 months. We will send out a list from HR of the people who are due a probation review. As the supervisor, either you or your area manager will need to sit down with the person and talk them through the form. And fill out the form out of 1 to 4 about how they're getting on, how well they're doing, or if there's any areas for improvement. On the second part of the form, it talks about passing the probation, extending the probation, or if things have really not gone well, it's a dismissal, it's not continuing with the employment. So again, just keep in mind, probation is an excellent tool, whether to really encourage somebody and show them how well they're doing, or if they're not the right fit for the business, that we take action early. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is absence. When somebody's out absent, it's a big deal. You still only have your few hours to get through the shifts and to get the store clean to the same standards. And if one member of your team isn't there, that makes it very, very difficult. And more importantly, if somebody is consistently not there, then that gets really, really frustrating. If somebody is sick, from a CCS point of view, absolutely we want to support them and we want to make sure that they get better and that they return to work and are fully fit. What we also need to be aware of is that sometimes sickness is used as an excuse not to come to work. And the person may be choosing not to come in rather than not being able to come in. And very often, it's those occasions that we can handle stuff a little bit differently, and it makes it a little bit easier for the person to come into work. Overall, it's important that somebody realizes that when we're sick, whether it's completely valid or whether it's maybe a bit of a decision, that being out sick is a big deal. And it's a big, big deal. And if I'm validly sick, if I have a stomach upset or something like that, and I honestly can't come into work, that is a big deal. And we must treat it like that. As the supervisor, as the managers, as our colleagues. Absence is not normal. It is unusual for somebody to be out of work. Certainly statistics and any of the research you do, if somebody is out sick more than 3 times in a year, that is unusual. For 99% of us, touch wood, we are never out sick from one end of the year to the other. Sometimes people could be unfortunate and have 1 or 2 things that happen to them in a year and maybe unfortunately out sick. But if you're noticing somebody out sick more than 2, 3 times in a year, that is unusual. So what we've done is we've made some changes to the absence policy. We've also made some changes to the procedures. And this is for everybody. It's really, really important that all absence is treated in exactly the same way. So let me talk you through some of the changes within the absence policy. And as a supervisor, I would really urge you to have a read of the policy, just to be sure of what it says. Have a chat with your area manager. They'll be able to talk you through some of the parts on it, because there's 1 or 2 parts that we need you to do a little bit differently as the supervisor. So when you look at the policy, some of the key changes, certification of absence is the same, slightly different in Ireland and the UK. It's a self-certification in the UK. It's a doctor's certificate after 3 days in Ireland, 7 days in the UK. No change to that. That's the legislation. What has changed is that the employee must ring in when they are going to be sick. No text message, no Facebook messages, no getting their friend to tell you, nothing like that. They must ring in. And that's the first thing. That's the basic level of respect that somebody can do for you as the supervisor. If they've texted you, or if they've Facebooked you, or if they've whatever other way to get you a message, it is critical that they get a phone call back. Right? If you can ring them back, great. That's fantastic. If you're not in a position to ring them back, certainly ask your line manager to do it. If they're not available to do it, we will do it from head office. And we'll ring the person. And when you ring them, it's really just, whatever their name is, Mary, God, I'm really sorry to hear you're sick. Are you all right? Is everything okay? As for the policy, I just need to be able to talk to you to make sure everything is all right. And, will you be back in tomorrow? We'll miss you today. That's all the call is about. It's making sure they're okay, making sure that they understand they'll be missed, and understanding then, well, look, we'll see you tomorrow. And if you're not going to be in tomorrow, will you give me a call this afternoon and let me know? So it's about making absence a little bit more of a big deal. The other part that I'd call out, I suppose, is look for patterns or trends. Certainly what I'd say is if somebody is out a few times in a year, that's a big deal. And that's unusual. And that's something that needs attention. What we're also going to do is we're going to have an absence meeting with somebody once they've been out sick 3 times in a year. So you can see up the top there. And that meeting will really be to sit down and understand, is there an underlying circumstance? Does somebody have an underlying health complaint that's leading them to be out sick more than they would normally be? If there is, well then, we'll work with them on that. We'll understand it. We'll see what it is. But if there are 3 unrelated absences, then that's unusual. That's unusual. And it may lead to disciplinary action. And that's important. So even if somebody is validly sick, it doesn't mean as a business we need to sustain it, because that as managing the shift through, if somebody is constantly sick, it gets to a point where you're not able to manage it. Right? It doesn't become practical because you never know will they be on shift or not. So let's take a little bit of time to some tips and tricks on how to manage absence and how to keep it as good as possible. First thing, and I mentioned it already, absence is a big deal. Right? Whether it's my stomach upset and I've been up all night and I'm not able to come into work, that's a big deal. It's important that I get the respect that I need, and it's important that the company cares that I'm out sick and not in. And at the very least, they call me and say, are you okay? Or I will have called them, and ideally, and we'll have had a conversation about it. Information and awareness. Really important that the person is aware how many times they have been out sick. I'm going to be asking that when anyone is out sick, that they do a return to work meeting with you as the supervisor. And that's really, really important. That's the opportunity for you to sit down with the person. And again, what I'd say is your line manager will be able to go through it with you. We'll talk about it a bit more in a moment. And if you haven't done one before, they'll talk you through it. And they'll show you what needs to be done in it. But again, it's about sitting down with the person and saying, God, Kieran, you were out sick yesterday. Are you okay? Are you fit to be in work today? Are you able to do the full range of duties? You don't want somebody who's still feeling unwell doing something that's going to make them feel worse or put themselves at risk, or put the company at risk or one of their team members at risk. It also is a good opportunity to say to them, okay, look, listen, and I've noticed you've been out sick twice before this year. Are you okay? Is there anything else going on? Anything we need to do as an organisation to make sure everything is okay? So, and I suppose the catchphrase, whatever we do, is if we don't care if somebody's out sick, why should they? If we don't put a focus on it and an emphasis on it, why should they care? It's very easy just to text message you in and say, actually, I'm feeling sick today, I won't be in. Not as easy to give you a call. Not as easy if then there's a meeting the next day to say, listen, are you all right? Is everything okay? So it's all about putting the proper focus on somebody, giving somebody the proper respect, and making sure we're caring about them when they come back into work, that they are well enough to work, that there's nothing else going on for them that they might need support on, and that if there's any other issues, whatever. And certainly what I'd say is if there is, please call us in HR, talk to your area manager. We're more than happy to advise and do whatever we can to help. So the absence procedure, just to recap, they must call on the first day of the absence. We ask that you record it on the system, and this is another new part. And you'll notice there's a change in the audit tool, which will ask you when you've done your end of shift audit, has anyone been out sick today? And that'll actually bring you through to, you'll then need to go into the HR system, and you'll need to record the absence. And you need to say, Kieran Condren was out sick. The final thing we need to do is a back to work meeting. And again, that's that opportunity to sit down with the person, ask how they are, let them know the policy, tell them that they were missed. If you haven't done one before, certainly sit down with your line manager and get them to work through it with you. So the key things to remember when we're talking about absence is a big deal. Person must ring you and tell you that they're not going to be in today and when they're going to be back in. We don't want to know their personal circumstances. We don't want to know the details of their absence. But we do want to know, look, is it a broken leg and you're not going to be here for a few months, or is it a bit of a tummy upset and you'll probably be back in tomorrow? We do want to know that kind of detail because we need to be able to plan. And then the next part is that we're going to be doing the return to work meetings every single time somebody is out sick, because it's important that they're aware that we care about the fact that they've been out sick. And we want to make sure that they are well enough to come back on shift and that there's nothing else we need to do. As I said, give us a call on HR if you have any questions on it, or talk to your line manager on it. So the next thing that I'd love to talk to you about is performance. And I suppose I'd ask you, have you ever had an underperformer on your team? And I think kind of when you look back over the course of your history while you've worked, I'm sure at some stages there's been somebody when you feel, God, you know what, they could actually be doing a little bit more for us. And there's different ways of doing it. So what I want to talk to you about over the next few minutes is how to get the very, very best out of people and how to make sure that we have the right standards in place. There's three key parts of managing performance. The first part is expectations and training. Right? As you know, how we all respond to positive feedback much, much better than telling somebody what they've done wrong. So I would always make sure to be aware of the values, make sure the person has been made welcome on the team if they're new. If they're having problems with an element of cleaning or an element of their job, spend the time with them. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Make sure that you go through the process again with them. You make sure that everything is clear for them and make sure that they understand what needs to be done. Tell them that you're there to support them. And do it honestly. Do it in a way that's really authentic to you and the way you do it. And it's amazing how much a little bit of compassion and a little bit of friendship and a little bit of support when somebody is struggling with a task, how far that can go to really help them get it right. And I know sometimes our first reaction is to tell the person they're doing it wrong, or to give out, or to be annoyed. And you probably know that really doesn't ever get the best out of somebody. That's not going to make them want to really do the very best job for you and for the team. So if you encourage somebody, if you work with them, if you set the standards for them, if you go through again what's needed, that will really help get the best outcome for somebody. And I suppose that's really the first part. It's giving that benefit of the doubt, understanding where the person is coming from. Everybody has stuff going on in their own lives outside of CCS, and sometimes as the supervisor, it's you having that little bit of understanding about that and thinking, right, okay, maybe this person has something else going on. Maybe they just need to take a little bit more time to understand this task, or maybe that's why they're maybe not in the best of mood today or not giving the right kind of an attitude. So again, you'll know it yourself, you know your teams, but just always be conscious of that and try and give people the benefit of the doubt, particularly if it's the early stages or the first time somebody has done something. What I would then say is, assuming you've used your compassion towards them, you've retrained, you've set the expectations, you've understood where they're coming from. Assuming things are still not right, what I would say to you is then we would move on to a PIP, a performance improvement plan. And I'll show you that in a moment. And certainly when we were doing the live workshop with everybody, we had some opportunities for people to practice and go through that. But I'll talk to you about that in a moment. If that still hasn't worked, we then move into a formal performance. And I suppose we really don't ever want to be there. It can very often be so difficult if you've entered into a formal performance process with somebody. It doesn't win their hearts and minds, and it generally it doesn't end up in a good outcome. But sometimes it's inevitable, that's where we need to go. So let's talk a little bit about the PIP, Performance Improvement Plan. If you haven't seen one before or haven't done one before, I would say sit down with your area manager and ask them to go through it with you and how you will use that for your person. Really what it is, it's quite simple. Keeping in mind you've already reset the expectations and spent time with the person and tried to explain what's not right. They haven't got it right on multiple occasions. Right? So only use the performance improvement plan when you have tried to get things right on multiple occasions with the person. And you've thought about what else might be the reason for it. So duties and improvement required on the first column, expected outcome on the next one, and then support and dependencies. So what support are you going to give for the person here? So duties required. So I need you to, focus on all of your area, get all of the area cleaned within the particular time period up to a certain standard. That would be your expected outcome is area cleaned within the 2.5 hours to the expected outcome. Support and dependencies. I will come and support you on each one of your shifts for the next 3 weeks, and you can ask me any questions that you need. You then sit down with the person regularly, ideally every week, and you go through, so what happened? How did they get on? Are they meeting it? Are they not meeting it? And sometimes you do need to just formalize a little bit more and say to the person, look, this is what I need from you. Could be as simple as timekeeping. You've told the person on many occasions, I need you to be in work on time, and they're still not coming in. There's no other reasons other than they're missing a bus or they're getting up a bit late. You can put a performance improvement plan in place to say, look, I need you to be in work on time. It's quite straightforward on the first part of it. Duties or improvement required, expect, to be here on time, expected outcome, full attendance, support and dependencies, let me know if there's anything else going on outside of work that we can help with, but, I need you to be here, and I can very often just help. Because if it doesn't work, you then will end up moving on to a formal performance process. Or if somebody's within probation, they may end up leaving employment with us if they're not solving the issues. The next thing that I'd like to talk to you about, and you may not have done this already, and what I would say is if you're going to do it, definitely spend time with your area manager or give one of us a call in HR. On occasion, your area manager might ask you to do an investigation. Right? An investigation is when something has gone wrong. Right? So maybe somebody was accused of something, maybe something has happened, maybe somebody has been disruptive, disrespectful, there's some kind of a problem has happened. The role of the investigator is to sit down with the person and understand the facts. You're not making a judgment on them. You're not saying, was it right or wrong? You're understanding the facts. And there's a template here, again, that your line manager will go through with you. But it talks through how to do an investigation. Very, very straightforward. Essentially what you're saying to the person is, look, CCTV footage says that X happened. Can you give me your version of events? What actually happened? Are there any mitigating circumstances? Tell me as much information as you want to tell me. After that, you then will need to make a decision. Is there a case to answer? Not was it right or wrong, but is there something here that needs to be brought forward to a disciplinary hearing? If there is, great, you refer it onto your line manager, they will sort it out. If there isn't, great, you refer it back to us in HR, and then we will contact the person and say there's no issue to be answered. Everything is all right. But again, I would just say it's again another good skill to have. It's like the interviews if you haven't done it before. Learning how to do an investigation, it's a good skill to have. It certainly will always be useful for you. And if you're going to do one, give us a call on HR or work with your area manager on it. What we did do in the face-to-face sessions, we did a little bit of a role play on it, but this might be something you can do with your area manager and just see how would you how would you go about it, or how would you go about the particular role play? Obviously, we're not going to do it today, but might just be something that's worth you thinking about. If you have an investigation form on site, maybe have a look at it and see how would you carry it out. What way would you do it? Again, an interesting skill to have. We're nearly finished, guys. The next topic that I would love to talk to you about is the audit tool. And all I'm going to say on this, and you probably have already seen it, it's probably already on your audit tools, is that we've made some changes to it. I'm not going to log into the actual audit because you have that on your tablets. But there are 3 new questions. The first one we referenced earlier is, has anybody been out sick today? If they have, you need to go into Orange and you need to record that they're out sick. One of my big difficulties in HR is that we don't know how many times somebody has been out sick, and we're trying to get all the records up to date, and we're getting there, we're pretty much there now, but it's down to you as the supervisor. If somebody's not sick, is out sick, it needs to be recorded. So that's the first thing that I would say. Has any member of your team been on unauthorized absence? So did anyone not turn up for work today? Really important we know about that in HR, so that can be dealt with. Again, that's a big deal for you. You're trying to run your shift and somebody hasn't turned up. So again, it's an important factor. And has any member of your team handed in their notice today? Again, critical that it's that a P45 request is issued. Because what we don't want to do is find that there's people who are still on our systems but don't work for us anymore. So again, really important that we do that. The other thing that I just would ask you to keep in mind is some comments on timesheets. When you're filling them in, you can see there's a number of different points there that we would like you to follow. There's also a video that we would send out to you, which just shows how to really effectively fill out your timesheets and making sure there's no issues or errors with them. And again, if there's any questions on timesheets, certainly give your area manager a call or give HR a shout. The final part, and we're at the end of it pretty much, is just termination. And all I'd have to say about termination is just to make sure that the P45 request form is filled in and that you update on your audit tool. And again, it's critical that we do that. I would love to do a quick recap with you on each one of the topics that we covered. We've covered a huge amount over the course of the video. I think if we look at the first one, it's the interview. So I would say use the interview template, use those 5 questions, score your person from 1 to 5, 5 being really good, 1 being not so good. If you're getting a low score in all of those, don't take the person on. It's much, much harder to get rid of the wrong person than it is not to take them on in the first place. So no matter how difficult things might be, if you don't feel right about the person, don't take them on. Think about the first impressions, think about the impression you're giving to the person, and think about the impression you're giving them of CCS and the kind of company that we are and the kind of company that they're going to be joining. So really, really important. And as I was saying, interviewing, if it's not something you've done already, really, really good skill to develop. And if you're going to get involved in interviewing, have a chat to your line manager. They'll talk you through it or give us a call in HR. But it's a brilliant opportunity. It gives you the chance to have influence on who's going to be working on your team. The next one is the induction. And again, the points to remember on this is, how did you feel on your first day? What was it like for you on your first day? And making sure that that new person feels really, really welcome, that they know what's going on, that they've seen the induction video, and that they are also shown the policies video. Really, really important, along with the health and safety SOPs, and along with being shown around the place. So, so important, and I know that takes time out of the first shift, but it's something that you can leave the tablet with them, they can look at the video, and you can go off and do your other duties and come back to them. You know, but it is critical that that happens on the first or second day, that they look at the videos, but certainly that they've been introduced to everybody. The next one was the values. And I suppose just to recap on, they're really the ethics that we work by. They're the standards of who we are and what we are. And I would just really ask for your support with those, that you can really be the role model for the values within your teams, and also encourage the behaviours with your teams around values. It is something that will really transform a shift if we really try and do it with our values. The next one is the way we work, and that's really around our handbook. The key part is, and you've probably got it already at this stage, which is the letter you need to hand out to each one of your staff members to say they have got the link to the handbook, they're going to have a read of it, and that they're aware of it. And that's really, really important. For yourself as the supervisor, I would say certainly have a look at the handbook. Key policies that have changed social media. We have a new CSR policy. We've made some changes to the absence policy. And a few other changes in it, but they would be the main ones. The next thing is to recap on probation. As I said, normally probation is 6 months for somebody. Really important. If you're not happy with them at any stage within the first 6 months, please call it out. You are seeing the best of them in the first 6 months. If you're not seeing the right attitude within the first 6 months, it will not get better. So don't put up with it. Call us in HR, talk to your line manager. We'll be able to advise you on what to do. The next part in that is doing the probation review form. It's a really, really straightforward form. So important to sit down with all of your employees when they get to their 6 months. And if there's problems, you should have sat down with them well before that. If everything is going well, you sit down with them at 6 months and you tell them how well they're doing, what an asset they are. Ask is there any support they need. And it's a great opportunity just to spend a few minutes and give people the recognition that they deserve for the work that they're doing. The next one is the absence process, and as you said, we have a new absence policy. Some things have changed in it. Really important that the person rings you. No text message, no Facebook, no nothing else. Rings you. If they didn't ring you and they've given you a message in some way, or their friend rang you or somebody else, that's not good enough. Either you need to ring them back or get the line manager to ring them back, or call us in head office and we will call them back. But it's really, really important. Absence is a big deal. If somebody's out sick, we need to make sure that they're well enough to come back into work. Are they all right? We need to show them that we care about the fact that they haven't been in work and give them any support that's needed. We want to make it that it's if somebody is making a decision to maybe not be as well as they could be, that we're also capturing that and we're saying, look, I need to draw to your attention. You've been out sick 3 times within the last 12 months. That's unusual. We need to be doing an absence return to work meeting every time somebody has been out sick, because again, that's so important. Again, we talk about respect that we need to give somebody to say, look, are you okay? Are you well? Is everything all right? Can you do your full range of duties? And it also gives the person the opportunity to let them know, look, just letting you know you've been out sick twice already. We need to do an absence review meeting on the 3rd or 4th absence. The next one I suppose to recap on is performance. And I think with performance, it's really, really important that the first part of it is around the expectations setting. Spending that little bit of time with the person, understand where they're coming from. Do they understand the job that needs to be done? Are they comfortable in the environment? Is there anything else that they need support on? Go through it again with them, train them again on how to do it. And just take a little bit of a step back and try and understand how can we get the very, very best out of this person. If on multiple occasions you've done this, you're still not getting the results you need, or maybe an attitude is wrong, then maybe look at a performance improvement plan. Talk to your line manager about it, or talk to us about it in HR. If things still aren't right, we may be looking at a formal performance process. One of the things we talked about in that section was the idea of doing an investigation. Some of you may have done investigations before. For some of you, it may not be something you've done already, and maybe something that you could get involved in. Again, it's a great skill, like the interviewing, a good skill to have. There's a really, really straightforward template there, and your line manager, us in HR, will be able to chat you through it if you're doing an investigation for the first time. The next part, just to recap on, is the audit tool. Just be aware there's some new questions. You have to record if somebody's been out sick. You need to make sure that any unauthorized absence is notified to HR, and you need to make sure that a P45 request has gone in if somebody has resigned. And then the final part is termination. It's just making sure that everything is in order, you have back any of the equipment you need, and making sure that you have the P45 request gone in. So guys, just many thanks for your time. Really appreciate you taking the time to do it. I know there's a number of things that you'll need to keep in mind. What I would say is make sure to have a look at the videos. You'll need to look at the induction video. You'll need to look at the policies video. You'll need to look at the values video. And there's also one on timesheets. They'll be available on your tablet. So make sure to take the time to have a look at those. The other thing I would say is make sure to take the time to sit down with your line manager and go through any of the new forms that you haven't done already. So maybe if you haven't done an interview, to go through that with your line manager. They'll talk you through it. If there's anything on the performance improvement plan, they will be able to talk you through it and how you would use that. If you're doing an investigation template, again, your line manager will talk you through what the investigation is. On absence, we have a number of processes in there which have changed. So there's a return to work meeting and that form, but there's also an absence review meeting that your line manager may ask you to do with some of your team. And if you do, your line manager will talk you through it. Other than that, I would say just try and remember all the different parts on it, make sure we're using the audit tool. And I said, really, that's all for now. And thank you very much indeed.